Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Audit and Finance Standing Committee for, is it Wednesday? June 21st. My name is Paul Russell, and I represent Lower Sackville. It's 10 a.m., and I'd like to call the meeting to order. I'd also like to acknowledge that the Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the traditional and unceded lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of May 17th, 2023, moved by Councillor Hensby, seconded by Councillor Stoddard. Are there any errors or omissions in those minutes? Not seeing any. All in favor of the minutes, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, thank you. The next item is the approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I wonder if I could have committee's indulgence to add an in-camera item, and I would just want to really encourage members to stay for the in-camera item. It's an important issue that we need to talk about today. Personnel issue.
I can't remember. Do we need a seconder for that, Annie? So Councillor Stoddard had seconded that. Thank you. And can, just to keep things a little bit more straight, can we move public participation up to the beginning? Thank you very much, Councillor Daigle-Gammon. Is there a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Cleary. Councillor Daigle-Gammon, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I just was going to read out the motion, so to change it. Would you like that done?
We would like to read the motion. That would be awesome. Thank you.
Move that agenda item 17, public participation, take place immediately before agenda item 8, consideration of deferred business.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Are there any other changes to the agenda? Not seeing any. Actually, we need a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Thank you, Councillor Cleary. Thank you, Councillor Hensby, for seconding that. All in favor of the amended agenda, please signify by saying aye. 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 All opposed? Great. Thank you very much. Business arising out of the minutes is none. Call for declaration of conflicts of interest. Not seeing any. Motions of reconsideration is none. Motions of rescission is none. The next item on the agenda is the just moved public participation portion. And for public participation, this is the section of the meeting where we invite members of the public to either sign up in advance or step forward in the meeting and present to Audit and Finance Standing Committee. There were no registered speakers for this morning, so if any member of the gallery would like to step forward and address the Audit and Finance Standing Committee. Second time, if any members of the gallery would like to step forward and address the Audit and Finance Standing Committee, you are welcome to do so. And third and final time, if any members of the gallery are interested in addressing the committee, you are welcome to do so. Thank you. Not seeing anybody stepping forward, let's move on. The next item is 8.1, the Auditor General's 2022-23 Annual Report and 23-24 Audit Priorities. Evangeline, when you're ready, the floor is yours. And welcome to Chambers.
Okay, thank you very much. So hopefully that will switch over to the slideshow momentarily. There we go. Good morning. I'm pleased to be here today to present my annual report and audit priorities. I'll start out by just listing the audits that we released last year. So we had 3 audit reports. We looked at management of respectful workplaces, corporate real estate development and sale of industrial. Sorry? Oh, wasn't working? Okay, that's good. All right, thank you. So corporate real estate development and sale of industrial lands, land and building acquisition and disposal, and Halifax Water's SCADA system. We also had a lot of follow-up activity last year. We followed up 2 audits from 2020, 2021, building permits and inspections, and Halifax Regional Police IT audit. We also went back to follow up a number of outstanding recommendations from audits that had been completed in 17 to 19. And those were Halifax Water, management of drinking water safety, management of surplus buildings and land, Halifax Transit bus maintenance, management of development approvals, and procurement. So that would not have included any audits from that period that had 100% recommendation implementation when we first did the follow-up. We have 3 audits in progress at this time. HRM Information Technology Audit, that one is in its wrap-up stages. We've finished field work, getting ready to write a report and so on. And hiring practices is underway, and an audit of diversity and inclusion strategy is just getting going, so that one's at the planning stages. We also have a number of follow-up reviews in progress, management of accounts payable and transit technology project management. We also have follow-up review of the fire inspection audit that we did. However, we've obviously taken a little pause on the fieldwork section of that as of late because the fire business unit has been a little busy with more important things. We are also following up some outstanding recommendations from 2019 audits, payroll management, and road and sidewalk asset management. We report 3 performance measures annually that we use to sort of look at how the office is doing. There's percentage of staff hours on audit versus non-audit activities, the percentage of recommendations that management has accepted and intends to implement, and then we look at the percentage implemented after 18 months. So the first 2 either met or exceeded the target. The implementation rate for recommendations was below its target of 80%, and it's the 2nd year in a row that it's been below 80%. Management told us that COVID is partly responsible for this. The rate did increase from 63% in 21-22 to 73% in 22-23, so it is going back in the right direction. We will be looking for it to return to 80% or higher. And I understand the CAO's office is implementing or has implemented a process to track the outstanding recommendations, and I'm confident that that will help address the issue and move that rate back up. Planned work for 23-24. We had a number of staff vacancies like many business units in 22-23, and there's an audit carryover, fairly large assignment actually, management of the Cogswell Interchange project. So that one will be done in 23-24. And there's 3 new ones, surplus IT assets and how those are managed, enterprise risk management, and business continuity planning. There'll also be a number of follow-up reviews in 23-24. So the fire inspection one that I mentioned earlier, we started that, and then, as I said, took a pause. So we'll wrap that up and get that one reported once we have a chance to get back and connect with fire management. Management of solid waste operations will also be followed up, and management of respectful workplaces. There's a couple of outstanding audits with outstanding recommendations as well from the first time they were followed up that we will loop back and look at, and that's the LED streetlight conversion project and fleet vehicle use, car allowances, and mileage. So that is it for my presentation this morning. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Thank you very much for that, Evangeline. There is no motion associated with this report, so if members of the committee do have any questions for the Auditor General, feel free to speak up. I do appreciate that the percent completed is low and that it is improving, and I look forward to seeing that return to 80% of the recommendations completed as well. I don't see Councillor Mancini. Okay. I don't see Councillor Mancini, just his mic is on. That's curious. I don't see any members of the committee with any questions, so thank you very much for your report, Evangeline. We look forward to seeing that IT report come back. The next item on the agenda is Councillor Cleary, and 8.2, the CAO contract amendment report. Councillor Cleary requested this item be brought forward to this meeting during the April 19th meeting of the Audit and Finance Standing Committee, and it was deferred to today's meeting. There is no motion associated with this item, but staff are here to answer any questions that the committee may have. So go ahead, Councillor Cleary.
Thank you. And I wasn't able to be here, which is why it was deferred, but it's really simple. I just have a quick question, and that is, for the report when it comes forward, we see the ones that have been amended and by the percentage and amounts. Just wondering if, like, a reason could also be attached in the report. And I don't necessarily require an answer, but if staff could take that away, they could contemplate that. Because when you look at the table, it just says, here's the contract, it went up.
Pryor, Director of Procurement. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor. We can, this is a brand new report, as you know, from when the policy was amended in November. So we were testing different formats. We do attach the reports now to, we didn't in this one, but the subsequent 2 reports that have come before this committee actually have the report attached. So we could try to summarize in the report if you would like, or we can refer you to the attached report, whichever you would find is easier, we're more than willing to do.
So I think what's important is when we consider these documents, we're not just doing it for councillors, we're doing it for the public too. And so the public may not have the time or know where to find the reports, and it just a bullet, a sentence or 2 might be appropriate just in the table for each contract. That was just my only suggestion. Otherwise, I mean, I'm happy we did this, and I'm happy this is coming forward. But you know, a little bit more info might be beneficial.
Sure. We can actually include the reason, no problem.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cleary. Go ahead, Councillor Hensby.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm just trying to recall what signing authority limits the CEO currently has. Trying to recall what the thresholds were.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor, the policy amended in November of 2022 gave the CAO unlimited approval as long as the contract amendment was already funded. If there was no funding available in the project, then they have to come, the business unit would have to come to Audit and Finance and request additional funding.
So as long as it's approved in the budget process, the CEO has authority to execute it.
Correct. Okay. And anything over 20% that used to come to council, the CAO can now approve, but procurement is responsible for providing you a report that indicates what contracts had amendments over 20% that the CAO approved.
And what is our normal contingency calculation we have in our contracts? Is it 15 or 20?
I'm sorry, I would not be able to answer that question.
Normally we have contingency amounts budgeted?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jerry Blackwood, CFO. It would vary with respect to each procurement, what contingency would be carried. So, but that would be funded within the budget. It's not a standard straight across the board, 10%, 20%, 25%. So it would be specific to the project and within the funding envelope for that project.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hensby. Thank you, Jane. One of the things that I was noting was that the amounts that it went over are quite a bit high. So nearly $1 million for the Harborview project. And although it's not a large amount of money, it's only $20,000, the percent increase for the Dartmouth North project was at 204%. I'm not going to ask for anything at this point, but it might be worth revisiting this if we see a large increase of the contract. That would be something to consider for the future. Thank you very much, Jane. Next, we have notices of tabled matters, and there are none. Over to the clerk. Do we have any correspondence for this meeting?
Thank you, Chair. There is no correspondence nor petitions for today's meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much. And are there any petitions for members of the committee? Not seeing any. There are no presentations. There are no information items brought forward. We have had the report from the Auditor General. The next item on the agenda is 12.2.1, the investment activities for the quarter ended March 31st, 2023. And there is no presentation associated with this item, although Vicki Robertson, Deputy Treasurer, and Renee Towns are here and available to answer any questions. Go ahead, Councillor Cleary.
So I'll move that the Audit and Finance Standing Committee forward the staff report dated June 5th, 2023 to Regional Council as an information item.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Daigle-Gammon, for seconding that. Go ahead, Councillor Cleary.
Just maybe a quick question and looking for a comment from staff. So I'm used to seeing the investment activities report come, and typically we would be, well over the benchmarks. And as interest rates have been increasing, I notice, our returns are still great relative to the benchmark, but we're getting closer and closer, and sometimes not quite as high relative to the benchmark as we used to be. Just some comments around interest rates, what we're invested in, and how that's, instead of being 2 times what the benchmark used to be, we're like right at the benchmark now.
Vicki Robertson, Deputy Treasurer, through you, Mr. Chair, to the Councillor. The benchmark this time, you may have noted, we actually broke out the bond portfolio from the money market portfolio. What we found is that the benchmarks that we've been using have about 3 or 4% of short-term bonds in them, whereas our portfolio for that quarter had about 25% bonds. So that is going to actually misrepresent a little bit. So that's why we actually broke out the bonds. So the interest rates for the bonds are set, as you know, those are long-term instruments. They average around 1.16, whereas the returns for the money markets were, much more than that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was over 3%, I think. So that's why the variance.
And we're looking at the turnover then for those as we sort of move through to take advantage of the new higher interest rates?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, to the Councillor. Indeed, we've actually had 2 bonds mature already on June the 2nd, I believe it was. So that reduced our bond portfolio by almost $40 million. We have also done a reinvestment since that time with the tax receipts that we would have had in April. And the investments or the instruments that we purchased in early May were much higher. So we do expect that to go up.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cleary. Thank you, Vicki. There are no further questions on that report. We do have a motion to forward it to Regional Council. All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Great, thank you. The next item is 12.2.2, the fire station and volunteer firefighter paging system upgrades. Once again, there is no presentation with this report, but we have Deputy Chief Dave Meldrum and Mark Burgess, the Division Chief of Innovation and Technology, who are able to speak to that report. Go ahead, Councillor Hensby.
The Audit and Finance Standing Committee recommend that Regional Council One, approve the budget increase of project account number CI 210020 HRFE power and backhaul upgrades in the amount of $52,585 net HST included to fund the upgrades to 6 paging transmission tower sites outlined in the staff report dated June 14, 2023, and 2, approve the unbudgeted withdrawal in the amount of $52,585 net HST included from the capital fund reserve Q526 to fund this budget increase, and 3, authorize the chief administrative officer to negotiate and enter into an amending agreement with Bell Mobility, Inc. for $52,585 net HST to complete upgrades to 6 paging transmission tower sites outlined in the staff report dated June 14, 2023.
And seconded by Councillor Daigle-Gammon. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Hensby.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. When I read this report, I was a little surprised when they talked about the first contract and finding out it was going over budget, and they cut 6 station locations, and that bothered me because 3 of the 6 were my particular district. And then reading on the station locations where the towers are, I'm just kind of curious of the tower locations. I would check in with Bell to make sure they are more than guaranteed to have proper generators on sites and backup fuel and stuff, because when we had situations on the Eastern Shore during certain storms, we lost power and capability of some of our telecommunications. And I just want to know is how secure is our fire department's paging systems during those times of crises.
Thank you, Dave Meldrum, Deputy Chief, Halifax Regional Fire. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the Councillor, we are working to make both our TMR and our paging systems more secure. You're absolutely correct. We've experienced some work with Bell in the past where refueling the on-site generators has not been as timely as we require it to be. Chief Burgess, who is in attendance here at the committee today, is currently separate and apart from this report before you, working with staff to negotiate the service agreement for our paging system. And we are requiring a higher level of guarantees for quick response to any outage, including power outage.
Thank you very much. Satisfied.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Hensby. I don't see any further speakers on the list. So there were also some concerns with situations like Hurricane Fiona and in other times when traditional internet service goes down to people's homes, and so there is a higher reliance on cell frequencies. And this caused excess capacity to be needed and caused a number of people to be bumped out using the cell frequencies. Are the systems that we are currently using traditional cell frequencies, and is there a plan to move off of that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So to answer your question, the reason this system that we're talking about today, our paging system, is so critically important to us is because it does not rely on those networks. Our firefighters actually use a telephone application as well, I Am Responding, which is very useful in terms of providing information, but we don't rely on it as our exclusive method because there are districts within our municipality that on a daily basis will not have complete cell phone coverage, never mind backing up if there's a failure in the cell network. So our paging system is not reliant on that.
Okay, thank you very much. Go ahead, Councillor Hensby. Just to follow up on those questions, just out of curiosity, for ultimate backup, how many of our rural fire stations have satellite phones?
At this time, fire does not have satellite phones in the fire stations. We have a limited number of sat phones with certain operational chiefs. Our TMR system is our most reliable, most redundant means of communication that we rely on for firefighting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hensby. There are no further speakers. Thank you, Chief Meldrum. So we have the motion on the floor, moved and seconded. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Great, thank you. That motion passes. The next item on the agenda is 12.2.3, increase to the Halifax Commons pool reconstruction. There's no presentation associated with this item. Go ahead, Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move that the Audit and Finance Standing Committee recommend that Regional Council 1 approve a transfer of $2 million net HST included from CI 2000002 Finance and HR Business Foundations, and 2, increase the capital project number CB210020 Halifax Common Pool reconstruction by $2 million net HST included.
Thank you, Councillor Cleary, seconded by Councillor Stoddard. Go ahead, Councillor Cleary.
Just a quick question. So I skimmed this report this morning, and from the very quick read I had of it, it looked like this is entirely due to the fact that we thought we would be able to reuse the playground structures, and turns out we won't be able to. So are there any other cost overruns, or is it just the playground structures? Was that in there as well?
Good morning. Philip DeGanzik, Director of Facility Design and Construction. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor. The original plan was to use the existing playground, at least temporarily, by relocating it while the project was ongoing. Unfortunately, the existing equipment was found unsuitable to have continued use over the next few years, so we relocated another one that was being replaced from George Dixon Center to the Commons presently. The original plan was to include a new playground through falling in conjunction with the pool. And the answer to your second question with respect to cost overruns, yes, there have been.
And just could you list those others?
Yep. The biggest one was contaminated soil. So this site's on the site of a former dump. So we anticipated some contaminated soil, but this surpassed our expectations. We had to engage additional environmental consulting and testing, and there was a lot of material that we had to treat and deal with under the direction of NSE.
Well, I could tell you from walking by it this morning, it's looking pretty fantastic. And I know there's a lot of excitement from the community now that the hoarding has come down off the fencing and people can see into it. And the pool is full and the cladding's on and the landscaping is happening. You want to illuminate us on when it'll be open to the public?
We're working towards a July 1 kids splashing in the pool date.
That's awesome. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cleary. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chair Phil. So just, we're transferring money from finance and HR business and increasing. So the $2 million we're looking at, is that net new money that we have to find money for?
Correct.
So this, what was the original budget on this? Do you remember?
The original project, well, I'll go back. The original winning bid was $18,430,000. The project was awarded for $17,389,000. The reason we were able to reduce the overall cost was there was a value engineering exercise undertaken to reduce the scope, and the biggest component of that was to redesign the building to move it so as to avoid interfering with Halifax water infrastructure. The original plan would have cost $1 million extra, included a lot of risk and schedule and cost to relocate Halifax water infrastructure. We decided against that and saved $1 million and a benefit to the schedule.
I was trying to think what the original estimate was. I can't remember what it was, but this has been caught up like every other project in the city in terms of increasing costs and getting contractors and getting equipment, and obviously soil remediation is always a challenge when you're looking at a project like this. I've been by it a couple of times too, walking around. It does look like it's going to be a pretty awesome thing for the city, and it's going to be an awesome thing for probably a lot of folks who might otherwise not have access to something like this, which is why it's so important to us from the beginning. It's a concern that the cost has escalated. I don't know that there's any way around that today. We have projects in the private sector as well that are completely on hold because of what's happened. So I appreciate the fact that we saved some money on it, and hopefully used our leverage with former significant people at Halifax Water to help us with that one as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Go ahead, CFO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just with respect to Mayor Savage's question about the $2 million, and Philip is correct, it is a cost increase. However, we're doing, we're just rebalancing the capital budget, because we're not going to spend out the total money that's allocated for the finance and HR. So it's not an increase. We're not drawing from reserves. We're rebalancing within the capital project. And the reports that have been coming back here lately, that is what finance has been recommending with staff, is to look within the current capital budget to rebalance, as opposed to looking to draw from capital reserve.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, just very quick. Thank you, Jerry, for that. I understand that. It's still $2 million that we're not going to be spending on something else. Everything we do now is either coming from something else that's budgeted, or else we have to go back to the budget process and either do new reserves or go back to the taxpayers. So I get that. But I think in this case that when this opens up, people are going to be extremely pleased with this. And I think it's a project we can be proud of as a municipality. And in the same way that we're supporting projects like the Eastern Shore Lifestyle Center, which I think is important, Councillor Hensby, and I look for your support on that. I think, these kind of projects are super good for the municipality as a whole. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Go ahead, Councillor Hensby.
And if there should ever be any cost overruns for Eastern Shore Lifestyle Center, I'm sure I'll have your support as well. I just wish we had a picture of the diagram of the playground and stuff, because the $1.7 million for a playground is quite a playground. And I'm just trying to figure out, you talk about accessibility figures and standards. I wish we had the picture of the plan just to help us absorb that kind of information. The nature of the contaminated soils, what was the problem? Was it hydrocarbons, or was it biomedical waste materials? Like, what kind of materials was found in the soil?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor, I don't have all of the specifics with me, but there was arsenic and heavy metals. I believe there were PAHs as well, the aromatic hydrocarbons you suggested. But I don't have the details on that. I could provide those.
Just kind of curious, when we have these site reports, it'd be kind of nice to know what it was, the nature of it. Talk about an old dump being in the commons and stuff. I just kind of wondered how much it was old farming activity that was on the commons, or could have been industrial activity with other activities in the area. So I just kind of like to know the nature of those things in the future. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Hensby. One of the things that I've been curious about, go ahead, Councillor Daigle-Gammon will go next.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. In rebalancing the budget, Jerry, do we know what it gets taken from? So this $2 million that goes here, which I understand that why, but do we also know the other side of the ledger about where it's coming from? A project that is not going to be finished this year, that's going to move to the next year, or whatever. Thanks.
Yeah, so the funding to complete the pool, the $2 million, is coming from the Finance and HR Business Foundations program. In looking at how we could rebalance and apply funding to this project, we did a scrub through the capital project and look for projects that wouldn't be fully spent out.
Okay.
So we would have consulted with the IT division on that, and that capacity was available. So that's why we recommended that capital project be used. It will create a pressure down the road, I think, if that's what you're getting at.
Yes.
It's not we're using funding within the current year.
Yes.
Within our current capital envelope, our total capital envelope, but it will create a pressure down the road. And if you recall, we funded Cash and Goodman Library from that same project as well. Yes. To complete that. So, but that project has been de-scoped and pieces of it on hold right now, so we did have funding capacity within that project.
Thank you.
Thank you. Philip, this is there are two things being taken care of in this. One of them is the playground structures, and the other is the soil contamination. Do you have a rough breakdown of how much went to each?
I believe it was, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, in response to your question, I believe it was 1.7 million associated with civil works and the playground, and $300,000 for the contaminated soil.
Considering that, is there anything that I was expecting that ratio to be the opposite? Is there any compelling reason, other than community interest and desire and all of that, that the playground structures cannot wait 1 year?
Okay, so the playground, it's a bit of a misnomer to refer to it as a playground. It's more of a location that includes playground equipment in a couple of locations, as well as a swale to deal with on-site drainage, because as we've developed and finished a lot of this property, we needed to create adequate drainage to drain away the surface runoff. So there's a swale that's built into this proposal that as part of the design for the playground. There's a lot of hardscaping as well as rubberized surfaces for safety and to enhance accessibility. So it's more of a site than it is just the playground. If you're familiar with what was existing before as the Commons Playground, it was a fairly large group of structures. Well, there will be a couple of those, as well as interconnecting pathways to get from one to the other. With respect to your question about is it too fancy of a playground, or I think that was the intent of your question, or?
The intent was kind of wait a year.
Wait a year. So, well, the reality is if we ordered this tomorrow, it's going to be a year anyway. The delay on these kinds of pieces of equipment is approximately a year. So the intent will be to design, get the design completed, issue a tender to design it to the budget, and then get the civil works completed, and then order the equipment and install all of that and the hardscaping in the next construction season, sorry.
So it sounds like it would be waiting a year anyway. It is just interesting that it is showing up for this budget season.
We would need to order the playground equipment as well.
Thank you. I'm going to continue with the speakers. Go ahead, Councillor Stoddard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for this information. Just two questions. My ears kind of perked up, Jerry, when you mentioned the Kesham Goodman Library. Is that something that we would take capital funds from, or maybe I'm not quite understanding?
Yes, thank you. So there was, with the capital project for the Kesham Goodman Library renovations, there was, I think, to complete that, I think it would require an extra $3 million. So we use that funding source for that project as well. So I didn't mean to confuse it there, but I was just, to Councillor Daigle-Gammon's question, we did the same thing with the Kesham Goodman Library in terms of we looked internally to rebalance within our current capital envelope as opposed to looking for a reserve contribution to do that.
Okay. My other question is, I had a playground that I inquired about. The residents were looking at putting in a rubber surface. And at that time, I was told that we no longer use rubber surfaces because of the fact that children or other members, when they left a particular structure, that there was a bounce situation, and we were looking at possible injuries because of the bounce, like whiplash or something like that, and that pea stone or wooden chips would be used instead. So I'm just wondering why this playground in particular would be authorized to have that rubber surface, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor, I may have misspoken when I referred to that surfacing as rubberized, but the intent is to allow accessibility, but to enhance safety. So it will be a state-of-the-art design that we would incorporate. The problem with wood chips and pea gravel is that a person using a mobility device would have difficulties accessing those equipment. So I'm not exactly 100% sure in terms of what that surfacing would be, but it would be a state-of-the-art design.
Okay. A little bit of concern there because regular playgrounds that are currently going to be accessible are still having the wood chips and the rubber design. I'm not sure if it's exactly what you're going to put in that playground, is being discarded. So I'm just wondering about accessibility for regular parks that are being put in. Are they going to be looked at in a different way now that we're looking at the rubberized in this particular park?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor, I really don't want to speak on behalf of my Parks and Rec colleagues. That's not an area of my expertise. We're facilities, and this is a part of a larger facility design, but I could happy to take that question away and get an answer for you.
Okay. Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Stoddard. Go ahead, Councillor Cleary.
Thank you. I'm curious, now I got to do some research. Rubberized surfaces, I have several playgrounds with rubberized surfaces. They work great, no injuries, and they're accessible. In terms of this particular one, so I did go back and look at the 2019 report to the mayor's question around what we were looking at. So actually the estimate back in 2019, so 4 years ago, was 15 to 17 million. If you look at the financial implications over the several years of building, it added up to about 16.1 million. Then Marco had the contract for 18. We went back to value engineering, brought it back. And so overall, we're still close. I mean, obviously we're over. No one likes to go over. I asked for a report that came back to us, gosh, 4 or 5 years ago at least now, on overages to contracts, because we consistently go over on contracts. And you look at the Class D and C and then, our final designs, and those estimates never match up, almost never. So one of the things, and I'll give this some thought and I'll talk to some of our staff, but one of the things we may want to do is, and I was hoping this would have been coming back, but the detail in the report that came back wasn't that great, is to look at different types of projects and the overages on those classifications of projects, and then take an average, and when we budget something, just say, you know what, they seem to be 25% over. Let's add 25% now, and if we don't spend it, then it can go into the reserves, and then it's available for those other projects go over by even more. The argument has always been, well, we don't want to estimate too much because then we have to raise taxes, and then we're charging taxes on people. But I've never, I shouldn't say never, I've rarely seen a project that comes in under budget. And especially in the last few years with the inflationary pressures we're having, and there's no expectation that, inflation is going to go down to 2% or 1% anytime soon, and we're certainly not going to have deflation. So I don't see a downside necessarily to adding some sort of average overage as our contingency on different classes of projects. Anyway, so that's a discussion for another topic, but I just wanted to let the mayor know that, we did estimate up to about 17 million, a little bit over, pulled it back, now it's over again, but for, very good reasons. And to Councillor Russell's point, no, it can't wait a year. Certainly if we wait a year and it takes another year to order it, or 8 months or 12 months to order it, then we're 2 years behind. And that would be unacceptable. So, and also, too, we don't want water draining into our brand-new pool. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Fair enough. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Hensby.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I was just watching online the video that we have, our YouTube video, of the aquatic center here on Commons, and in that video, I don't see the playground area at all. So is this a part of the Commons master plan playground area that's over and separated from the pool project? Because I would have thought that, when you talk about civil work and stuff, I would have thought that civil work would have been a part of this contract already. But is this the playground over and above the aquatic center itself?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor, the budget always was meant to include the playground and the hardscaping for all of the playground. The intent was to have a facility, a play facility that would match the quality of the pool. The other reality is that it's known that this aquatic facility is going to be extremely popular and heavily used. Colleagues in Parks and Rec have continually advised that, we are anticipating some kind of wait time protocol. So in terms of your question about deferring the playground, it would be optimal to have a place for parents and small kids to go while they're waiting, and that's why the playground was a part of the vision, the original overall vision.
Is there anything further, Councillor Hensby?
Well, I'm just trying to figure why we need additional civil work design. I thought that would have been part of the original plan anyway. That's what I'm trying to figure out. If we're going to order the new playground equipment, I understand that being ordered and prepare the spot, and I thought that would have been part of the original contract anyway. Why are we doing additional civil work?
The playground was removed from the RFP for the general contractor for the pool. Because the pool was a priority project, we wanted to get this pool operational and ensure as much of the 2023 summer season was available with a pool. That was where the focus was. We thought that the best interest was to focus the contractor on the pool project and then work on the playground design and the hardscaping and the trailways between the play facilities.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Philip. We have a motion on the floor and no further speakers on the floor. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. 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 All opposed? Okay, thank you. That motion passes. The next item on the agenda is 12.2.4, the award for 23057, the supply and delivery of the driver protection systems. There is no presentation associated with this item, but we do have members of Halifax Transit who are able to speak to it and answer questions. Can I have someone move the motion, please? Go ahead, Councillor Hensby.
Finance Standing Committee recommend to Regional Council 1 to approve the transfer $1,021,683, net HST included, from project account number CM 200006, conventional bus replacement, and 2, approve the budget increase of $1,021,683, net HST included, to project account number CV 230001, operator safety barriers.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Lovelace, go ahead. Councillor Hensby.
Well, Mr. Chairman, the last few months and the last year, we've always heard from the union about driver safety and stuff. So I'm hoping these barriers are going to support that so-called request that the union has given. I'm just kind of curious, has the union had any input in the design of these particular safety barriers? So I hate to see them be installed and being complained about that they're not fitting or they're not doing the purpose expected to do. So I want to know how much input they may have had and what we're proposing.
Thank you for your question. Good morning. Acting Director of Transit Fleet, Gagan Jaggi. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the Councillor. So this product is customizable, and there will be opportunity for input from the union. It's customizable to a limit, so there will be input, but they can't redesign the whole thing and request something that is out of the scope.
Now, is it this customized barrier protection, is it depending on the model of the bus? Because we had different bus models out there, so I'm kind of curious, do we need a different custom-made one for different types of brands or different type of buses?
That is correct. It will be to the different series of bus. So we have a New Flyer and Nova, 2 big OEMs supplied, and within those 2 suppliers, there are different series of buses. So there will be different measurements for each series of the bus.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hensby. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, and certainly these are things that we need and had some significant discussion about it. Budget. It's just a few months since we budgeted this, and now we're looking for this extra money, and there's only one bidder. Were we surprised by that? Did we expect that there would be others that might bid on this?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the mayor. There were, we expected a bit more than one bidder, but there was always just one successful bidder. We did not receive any other queries from any other distributors for the product that we had chosen.
It's disappointing that just shortly after putting this money in that we have to put more money in, but I guess there's no other option if we're going to do this, that we have to do this, and this is the supplier that we have. Certainly, it's somebody who's well-known in the industry, for sure. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Go ahead, Councillor Daigle-Gammon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, my question was very similar to the mayor's. When you said that the product you chose, so the product you chose, did it only have one supplier? I know that in some of the other procurement things that we have done, sometimes we have scripted the procurement in such a way that there is only one bidder.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor, no, that's not the case. There could have been more distributors.
Good.
But nobody really responded back. We left the bid open and did extensions in hopes that there will be more interest, but there wasn't any. It can be due to the market values. There are other transit agencies throughout Canada that are doing the same thing. So there might be that other distributors that are providing this product are already busy and have their plate full. Could be one of the reasons. We obviously encouraged others by leaving the bid open and putting extensions, but there were no more responses.
Thank you. And the second question I had was, when we talk about the different buses, is there anything that is particularly different around using in the accessible vehicles?
The accessible vehicles are not part of this contract. This is only for conventional vehicles.
Why? Why not?
Phil Herrick, Director of Transit Operations for Halifax Transit. Through your chair to the councillor. The accessible or on-demand service there is a different type of service. When those trips are booked, we're fully familiar with those clients that are getting on and off the bus. We see a lot fewer incidents with those, with the paratransit service. And those operators are interacting, strapping in, tying down, loading those passengers on the bus every day. So it's a different type of service and a different type of interaction with those clients.
I'm very familiar with Metro Transit and Accessibus. So I, excuse me, I actually commend those drivers like you wouldn't believe all the time. But I do know that there are some times that there are persons where the driver could be in an unsafe situation. And I have seen in other countries some modifications for driver protection on accessible vehicles. So I would hope that maybe we might do a little bit further look into what could be possible.
I think as we're looking at the holistic approach to staff and client safety, we'll be back in July to full council with a report on the bylaw, and then back in the fall with an overall conversation around safety program for transit, and the paratransit stuff will be very much part of that conversation and what's happening. The intent of this, the operator safety shields here, were to address where we were seeing some of those major incidents and challenges with our conventional service, but the paratransit group will be part of the overall program as we move forward.
Thank you. I'll pay attention to that one.
Thank you,
Mr.
Thank you, Councillor Daigle-Gammon. Go ahead, Councillor Stoddard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know we're talking about different bus styles, but I'm just wondering, would this amount cover our new fleet of electric buses? Will this be automatically part of the design, or is this something we'll have to think about later? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor, the electric buses will come with the driver protection system or the barriers installed.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Stoddard. Everybody has spoken once. So one of the things that I'm wondering about is what the other side of the equation is. We are adding money to this particular account. We are taking money away from the conventional bus replacement account, and I'm wondering what risks that might pose to being able to fully purchase the new buses, or what happens on that side of the equation?
So thank you for your question, Mr. Chair. I would like to explain how we ended up with that surplus in that account. So it is conventional bus replacement is a bundled account, and over time, when we go out for RFP, we don't know the exact cost of the bus at the time, and we end up with an odd number. So 14. There's available funds to buy 14 and a half buses, and our obvious reason we won't buy the half of a bus, and over time that adds up, and this conventional account was for replacement of diesel buses. We will no longer be using this account for procurement of the future fleet. The future fleet has been allocated funds through a different capital account.
Super. Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I don't want to, micromanage the business here, and I just want to pursue this a little bit. Every transit system in the country is looking to better protect drivers, and so one would assume that there would be lots of people looking at that demand and getting into the business or expanding their business line. So I'm just wondering. I'm just surprised there's one person who bid. Is it the case that because all transits are looking at this, that people can't keep up with the demand, as opposed to actually people seeing the opportunity to do business? Or are we looking at something more specific than other transit organizations will be looking at, which makes us more unique and thereby more susceptible to an increase? If you see the question I'm getting at is, why aren't more people in this business right now who are able to do it?
Thank you for your question. There are other distributors or different suppliers for different products. The product that we chose meets our needs, and the distribution line for that particular product is limited. So that absolutely adds onto the limitation of one successful bidder. Or as I mentioned before, there's always going to be just one successful bidder, but in this case, we only received one response.
I think if I could add to that just a little bit from an industry experience, what we see are a lot of cities, properties now transitioning to new buses, to electric fleets, or perhaps hydrogen down the road, which are coming from or creating new bus designs. One of the things we're looking at doing is retrofitting our existing fleet. So with new companies getting into the business, they're having that forward-looking piece, and maybe not as much as the reverse-looking, going back, with 10-year-old buses and stuff like that. This company and a few others are heavily engaged in that market, but across the industry, we're seeing large changes in the fleet, and probably folks focused on the net new designs.
Right, but there must be a lot of transit organizations across the country that are retrofitting their buses as well, diesel buses, even if they're looking like we are to go to alternate fuel buses.
Correct. There are, and some of the larger properties, in the country have gone through that. I went through this procurement with the City of Edmonton and Edmonton Transit, and we had a similar experience with the amount of folks that actually responded to RFP. We had a couple, but again, it was the manufacturing capacity to backdate those various series of buses and get the materials in to do them in a timely fashion.
Okay. That Edmonton guy in charge of that fleet, he's a traitor, by the way, in case anybody ever asks. We got the better of the deal. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Go ahead, Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just following up on the last couple of points. New Flyers providing the system that we're looking at here, they also are a manufacturer of buses, so they would know the buses and they know how they fit on there. And I think we only have 2 brands in our fleet. New Flyer would be one of them, and what's the other one? Nova. And so are there, I don't know, CSA certifications, or are there requirements under transportation legislation that these have to meet? Like, can any, Joe open up a garage and go, oh, I could design you one and put that in your buses? I'm assuming they have to meet, obviously, the specifications of the bus itself, because they have to be attached to things that you can attach to, and also fit in that. And is there any safety certifications that they have to go through before they can be installed for use on a vehicle?
Sorry, thank you for.
Oh, Mike.
Through Mr. Chair to the councillor. Yes, there are standards in place for the components. So the glazing itself has a very particular standard that it has to meet, because you're looking through that and needs to provide anti-glare services and so on. I can absolutely share my experience. This current sneeze guards, that's the term that we've been using over COVID, were installed and designed under my supervision. Yes, they definitely required approvals and an engineering perspective to make sure that they meet CSA standards or other standards out there.
Okay, that's what I figured. And I wouldn't think that there would be that many manufacturers of these things that would meet those specifications and also be in the volume that we need. I don't know, I guess, I think we have about 350, 360 buses in the fleet at the moment, around there.
We have 370 buses that are going to require this treatment. There are 5 Metro Transit buses, Metro X buses that will not receive it, and the excessive bus fleet will not receive the retrofit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cleary. There are no further speakers on the board. Are we ready for the question? Okay, all in favor of the motion? Oh, sorry, Councillor Hensby.
Just a quick question on when we do approve this and goes to council for final ratification, are we going to put a press release out to combat some of the transit unions' comments about not having safety drivers as a concern?
I'm going to ask someone else to answer that question.
Yes, that'll be part of the press release, and again, the overall conversation around the safety security program for transit as a whole, along with our code of conduct public campaign that'll be released shortly.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hensby. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Great, that motion passes. Thank you very much, everyone. The next item is from Grants Committee. There is nothing. Members of Standing Committee, there is nothing. Motions, there is nothing. Let's do notices of motion now. Are there any notices of motion? No notices of motion. No added items. Can I please have a motion to go in camera? From Councillor Daigle-Gammon, seconded by by Mayor Savage. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you. Let's take just a few minutes. I'd like to welcome everybody back to the public portion of the Audit and Finance Standing Committee. Go ahead, Councillor Cleary.
Just looking as it's being typed here, but I think it will say something that I move that the Audit and Finance Standing Committee adopt the recommendations as discussed in the in-camera meeting of, what's today? June 21st, first day of summer. Actually, I think it was, or maybe that's Eastern time. I think it was like 10:57 is the actual equinox when we hit that.
Thank you for that extended motion, Councillor Cleary. Do we have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Hensby. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. The date of the next meeting of the Audit and Finance Standing Committee is July 19th, 2023. Can I please have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Councillor Daigle-Gammon. We stand adjourned.